seconds. Jesus. Okay. Okay, good. So now it's recording. Alright, let me get this down. Alright. So what we're going to look at today is another kind of method, and this really helps for your supporting paragraphs. And this kind of structure will really be beneficial for Essay 4. I've kind of already discussed this structure in a way with topic sentence, example, and synthesis, but it's just a different way of looking at paragraph structure. So the Toulmin method is named after Stephen E. Toulmin, right? He was a philosopher, rhetorical theorist. What he used, and this is in our book, so check out this page. If you're not familiar with the Aristotle's triangle, and we'll work a little bit further with that, just to kind of get any kind of working knowledge down if you're not familiar with that. But definitely read up on the Aristotle's triangle. What he did is he reconfigured this old classical mode of manipulating the audience. And what he is saying is we should focus not on the audience, but focus on the argument itself. And so the method is named after him. So what we have here is the three essential components of any argument. What he provides is there's three essential parts, and then there's three extra parts. So no matter what, whether you're arguing in an essay, whether you're arguing even to just get someone to take out the trash for you, right, there's going to be some sort of claim made. Then there's going to be some sort of reason or data provided. And there's going to be some sort of synthesis, right, or warrant. And so what he's doing is, this is the kind of classical way of always arguing. Again, you'll look at the supporting paragraph level. Topic, sentence, claim, example, and then synthesis. And so he's just kind of reconfiguring these names here. But he's saying no matter what you're doing, you always have to have a claim, obviously, if it's an argument. You always have to provide some sort of data. Then you have to have some sort of warrant or synthesis or conclusion, right, to put it in, several different terms. So here's the formula, right? A claim is made, right? What do you have to do? You have to provide data in terms of supporting facts, right? And then the warrant connects the data. So again, it's, we have this data, therefore I conclude that this is happening because of this, right? To put it in just very simplistic terms. So the kind of graph at the bottom just shows, again, the relationship of what's happening, right? The claim is made, right? But again, what the claim needs is data. So the data and claim have to work together. But we can't just stop at a claim, right? I can't just say, smoking is bad because it's unhealthy, right? Or I could say something like smoking is bad because many people have died from it, right? That's my data and my claim. Well, okay, but like, how do you prove it? How many people have died? What are we talking about? How did they die? And so the warrant is there to show us a greater purpose of the argument, right? So anything that we argue always should follow this kind of idea that Toulmin is making. So let's say you doubted my American heritage, right? Let's say you doubted that I was born in America, right? So I'm going to claim that I'm an American, right? Well, obviously, how would I prove that, right? Think of the ways that we could do that. Birth certificate, driver's license, perhaps, social security card, right? Anything that is a document, right? That would be my data. So birth certificate is obviously the best form of data. And you always want to think about this when you construct your paragraphs. What's the best form of data? So I gave you my birth certificate from North Carolina, right? Clearly outlines that I'm from North Carolina, right? So therefore, what can we conclude? Well, we conclude anyone born in North Carolina is a legal American citizen, right? So here's how the Toulmin method works, and here's how pretty much any supporting paragraph should work, right? We have a claim, and in this case, I'm trying to prove to you that I'm an American. What's my data? Well, I have a birth certificate, a nationally recognized document, right, called a birth certificate from a state, right, in the country. And so what can we conclude from that then is, okay, well, anyone born in North Carolina then is a legal American citizen. That's my synthesis. That's how I can synthesize the claim and data together, right? That's the whole purpose of this argument. And so what Toulmin argues is that the claim and data cannot hold without sufficient strong warrant. So the weakest argument is actually the one with the weakest conclusion, right? So no matter what claim I'm making, even if I have good data, I still have to have a good connecting point, a good synthesis. And so again, it's that echo that I've always said about the conclusion being the most important paragraph of your essay, or set of paragraphs, depending on how long the essay is. And so that warrant is important, right? Because we can make a claim, support it with data, but we still can't stop there. We have to have some sort of synthesis. In a larger argument, Toulmin also identifies other parts that he says are necessary for any kind of large argument. And again, for Essay 4, which is a large paper, you really have to think about these aspects, such as qualifiers, rebuttals, and then, of course, further backing, right, or further synthesizing. In a larger argument, and we'll look very specifically at counter-arguments sometime next week, but counter-arguments are essential in order to prepare for your opponent's responses, right? In order to predict what your opponents are going to counter argue, right? And some people kind of, for some reason, instinctively think that counter arguments weaken your argument. And if they do weaken your argument, then you don't have a strong argument. But if you can predict what your opponents will say and then turn that around against them, that's exactly why we have a rebuttal. And so these kind of further ideas could be shown in my original claim, right, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, while the claim, doubt, and warrant are essential parts, right, the qualifier, the backing, the rebuttal are not. You don't necessarily always need a counter-argument or exceptions, but they're helpful, right, especially in a larger argument. So what the qualifier does is strengthens the claim by discussing important exceptions. So, in our argument about American citizen, think about what the exceptions are. Well, let's say I was born on a military base for some reason, or my father and mother were stationed somewhere, right? And maybe she's a civilian, right? Or my mother's active military, right? And I still am born on a military base. Well, that's technically considered American soil. So there are a lot of exceptions we could look at. Also, some Americans are not born in the United States. They're naturalized citizens, right? So you don't have to be born in this country to be an American. You could also be naturalized and all sorts of things, right? I know many a couple examples of family. They were born in Germany, right? But because their parents were in the army or they were just visiting, right? They became, they're of course natural citizens, right? And so there are exceptions we could look at when we expand our argument to include, right, all the different parameters of what makes an American citizen a citizen, right, or a person a citizen. And so we could look at, of course, data being a birth certificate, but then we could also say, oh wait, there's more to just being an American citizen. You could be born in a different country, but just have parents who are American. You could be born in a different country and then become naturalized. And so what the qualifier does, it helps extend that argument to show all the different exceptions. Now, the rebuttal, again, considers counter-arguments, much like any kind of classical model, right? And so, in our citizenship example, a possible rebuttal could be, oh, guess what? Homosexuals are born in this country, right? They are born in America. They are citizens, but they don't have the certain rights as other citizens. So now I could say, but just because you're born in America doesn't mean that you have the same rights. And so now if I want to talk about the liberties of citizenships or what it means to be a citizen or the rights that go along with being a citizen, now we can have this oh snap moment. And that's what, you could think about, right? This oh snap moment. There's all of a sudden this kind of argument I can make, be like, aha, but you see, right? And so it's very important to kind of consider, especially in longer argumentations, what are the possible counter arguments or what are the possible exceptions, right, either qualifiers or rebuttals that you should be considering in order to have the most complex and the most kind of coverage of a topic, right, the most complex coverage of a topic. So again, it just helps think about how you can extend all sorts of arguments, right, and all sorts of subtopics, right, in that larger idea. And the backing, of course, is just kind of a conclusion, as I mentioned, right? A further conclusion. The backing provides extra strength, right, or synthesis to the warrant, especially if the warrant is not widely accepted or understood. So it defends that initial warrant, right? So in our citizenship example, again, a backing statement could be, regardless of certain rights, any American citizen has access to free speech, legal protection, right, and of course has to pay taxes, right, when working. So even though there might be qualifiers, right, they're not born in America, but they become naturalized citizen. And we could have counter arguments, but you see, even though people are born in America because of orientation, they don't have the same rights. But then I could say, but let's go that even further, even though they may not have certain rights, they still have access to free speech and other liberties that are higher or perhaps more noble aspirations, right? So if we just look at citizenship, it could begin just by proving how I'm an American citizen. But then we could go much further in terms of what does that mean, right? What rights does that grant me? What ideas does that grant me, right? What freedoms does that grant me? And so we could just kind of look at all sorts of ideas through the Toulmin model, apply it to supporting paragraphs, and we could also just apply it to overall arguments themselves, right? Taking point by point and looking at what is the best data, how do I synthesize that data, what are any kind of possible exceptions or counter arguments to my initial argument. So we can conclude, of course, that American citizens have much in common regardless of birthplace or orientation, right? And so we could even further synthesize, right, after I provide you the backing here. So what does this all mean, right? Let's look at it in just terms of a visual format, because I think this is important. Arranged in kind of a graphic format, the Toulmin model looks like this. Again, a claim is made, right? What do you need to do immediately is provide that data. What do you need to do after you make that claim and provide data? Well, you need to synthesize. You need to tell us, what does that mean, right? What is the purpose? How can I apply this to an overall idea, right, or a global sense, right? Then I could give you possible exceptions and rebuttals that again work hand in hand together, right? Exceptions and counter arguments really help to again extend the initial claim. Well, what do I do if I provide you a rebuttal, or if I provide you exceptions? I still need to synthesize. I still need to show you the purpose of why I'm doing that, right? How do these counter arguments or exceptions work toward any specific goal? And then, of course, I still need to conclude, right? I still need to have an overall conclusion based on my initial claim, based on my initial data, based on my initial synthesis, based, again, by providing you further exceptions and counter arguments. I still need to conclude overall what ideas should we reach, right? How should we end this argument? And so again, just kind of give you a brief visual of what Toulmin is trying to teach us in terms of how to structure an argument. So let's analyze the analyzer for a moment. Toulmin developed this model so scholars and rhetoricians, including public speakers, legal community, all that stuff, right, could analyze arguments and, of course, construct arguments. So if one can identify different parts of the argument, one can compare claims, data, warrants, right, and then the other three perhaps, in order to establish one's argument validity over another, right, or if two arguments are even equally valid. So go back, and this is what I keep on saying in your comments, right, if you have trouble with topic sentences. This is, again, just looking at the basic three components. Every supporting paragraph should have a clear claim, a clear example, and a clear synthesis. So even at the the supporting paragraph level, the subtopic level, we should really use kind of the method always. In terms of the whole essay, we should really kind of structure that. We still need a thesis, right? We still need each supporting paragraph to be examples, and then we still need a conclusion, right? So it works even at a macrocosm and microcosm level. And then, of course, overall in the essay, especially when we write the larger one, we need to think about counter arguments, right? We need to think about what we should be doing, right, when we construct like a 10-page paper, as we will be doing for your essay 4. So I just want to pause it for